Yeah. I got to the park before the sun gave up. Found an empty bench near the baseball field. Shoes kicked off halfway, one lace still tied. Jacket folded under my head like a pillow. The clouds are moving slow enough to notice. A plane drew a line I couldn't keep track of. Some kid was counting dogs out loud nearby. Someone dropped the bottle and apologized twice. I wasn't thinking about changing my life, wasn't chasing answers, wasn't writing notes, just letting the afternoon happen without me for a little while. But every few minutes, somebody stopped, like I had become part of the scenery. I was just taking a break, just watching the sky change shape. Nothing dramatic happened today, no secret hard to say. I was just taking a break, breathing at a slower pace. Everybody thought something was wrong, I was only resting. A woman walking two golden retrievers asked if I needed water or a phone call. I said no thanks, and she laughed with relief like she'd been preparing for bad news. 20 minutes later, an older man stopped, pointed at me with the hand holding his coffee, said, "You sure you're okay there?" I gave him a thumbs up. A teenager on a skateboard rolled past and rolled back just to check again. I started wondering what I looked like, lying there so still. Maybe we're all so used to running that stand and still look suspicious. Maybe a quiet afternoon needs explaining now. I was just taking a break, just watching the sky change shape. Nothing dramatic happened today, no secret hard to say. I was just taking a break, breathing at a slower pace. Everybody thought something was wrong, I was only resting. Then came the best part. A little girl walked over carefully, holding a melting ice cream cone. She stared for a second, then asked, "Are you dead?" I laughed so hard, I sat right up. She screamed, "Okay, good," and ran back to her parents. I don't think I've ever felt more alive. I was just taking a break, just watching the sky change shape. The baseball game had ended hours ago, the shadows changed their place. I was just taking a break, nothing needed to be fixed. Everybody wanted a reason, there wasn't one. The street lights turned on one by one. A bicycle bell rang somewhere behind me. I put my shoes back on, walked home slowly, and for the rest of the night I couldn't stop smiling, because all I really did was lie on a park bench and somehow become everyone's problem for an afternoon. I stopped by the fountain near the station, just to sit down for a minute or two. A couple walked over holding a phone. Could you take one for us? The sun was landing right behind them, making everything look better than it was. I took 3 pictures, they asked for one more, then thanked me like I'd done something important. I watched them leave and thought that was the end of it, but somehow it wasn't. Could you take one for us? Just one before we go. A quick picture in the afternoon light, before everybody heads home. Could you take one for us? I heard it all day long. By sunset I knew more strangers than I had known that morning. A family wanted the bridge behind them, a tourist wanted the street sign and frame. Two friends wanted proof they'd finally met someone, wanted 10 versions, someone blinked in every shot. One guy handed me a camera old enough to have its own personality. I nodded like a professional, even though I wasn't. Every photo lasted a second, but people smiled like they wanted to keep it forever. Could you take one for us? Just one before we go. A quick picture in the afternoon light, before everybody heads home. Could you take one for us? I heard it all day long. By sunset I knew more strangers than I had known that morning. There was a little girl standing beside her grandmother. She looked at the screen and said, "No," again. The grandmother laughed, the third one worked, and for some reason that felt like a victory. The kind nobody talks about, but everybody understands. Could you take one for us? Just one before we go. The sky was turning orange now, the shadows growing long. Could you take one for us? The words kept following me. I spent the whole day making memories that didn't belong to me. On the train ride home, I opened my camera roll, 3 photos, 1 coffee, 1 cloud, 1 crooked traffic light. That was all, after helping save 100 moments for everyone else. I smiled and put my phone away. Found a spot near the Riverwalk, coffee in my hand, know where I had to be. The weather was doing that thing it does, making everybody stay outside a little longer. I was halfway through people watching, making up stories I'd probably forget, when somebody stopped and smiled at me, like they already had a question ready. I could see it coming, so before they even started, I pointed at myself and said, "Sumimasen." That usually works, at least for a minute. Turns out you spoke it too. Every word I thought would get me through. I was looking for a quiet afternoon. You were looking for a conversation. Turns out you spoke it too. Now my backup plan was falling through. I was running low on places left to hide. By the time you smiled and answered in perfect Japanese, I laughed and switched to something else, a few French words I remembered from a movie. You didn't even blink, you answered back immediately. That's when I started getting nervous, the kind of nervous that's mostly funny, like watching a magic trick fail before the audience even sits down. You asked where I was from, I almost answered honestly, then remembered the game I started and kept kept digging deeper. One bad decision can become a whole afternoon. Turns out you spoke it too. Every word I thought would get me through. I was looking for a quiet afternoon. You were looking for a conversation. Turns out you spoke it too. Now my backup plan was falling through. I was running low on places left to hide. By the time you smiled and answered in perfect Japanese, then came the moment I knew I had lost. You corrected my pronunciation of a word I'd practiced twice, and somehow it felt more embarrassing than getting caught in the first place. So I looked at my watch, even though I wasn't late, pointed somewhere behind me and said, "Sorry, I really have to go," which was finally the first honest thing I'd said all day. Turns out you spoke it too. The language and the joke I thought I knew. I was trying to disappear politely. You kept making it impossible. Turns out you spoke it too. And honestly, I'm glad you do, because years from now I probably won't remember what we talked about, but I remember how hard I laughed when my escape plan lasted less than 30 seconds. The sun was setting by the river now. The coffee was cold, the conversation was over, and I walked away smiling, thinking, maybe next time I'll just say hello.